What's going on, everyone? We have so much to talk about today. There is a lot going on in the market and just the world right now that has some very big effects on the stock market. As I'm sure many of you have already heard about at this point, there is a potential massive port strike that can go into effect starting tonight that would see East Coast ports from the state of Maine to the state of Texas closed down, which would be the first time this happened since 1977, which would end up costing the U.S. economy more than $5 billion a day, where tens of thousands of dock workers would walk off the job, which has the potential to cause some pretty bad shortages and only make prices go even higher. Again, this is only a potential, but it's not looking good so far. So in today's video, we're going to cover everything you have to know about that situation and how it will affect stocks going forward. But we also have some big news to cover with weed stocks of all stocks, as Kamala said some things related to this industry today that sent these stocks flying higher. Of course, we're going to check back in on Chinese stocks as they are still in their record-breaking uptrend. And at the same time, Jerome Powell spoke today and hinted at some interesting things with the economy and the market going forward. We have a lot to talk about today. We have a lot of great setups for tomorrow, and there's a lot to know heading into the market this week. So Tom, let's not waste any time and let's get right to it.
Yeah, today was pretty wild with the SPY. Whenever Powell spoke, the market kind of fluctuated a little bit there in the afternoon, but the SPY ended up pretty much in the green today, Mike. It's not too far away from all-time highs again. If we have a nice green move tomorrow, we'll be right back there, but I have a bad feeling that that's not going to be the case. I don't know how much you guys have heard about these port strikes going on, but Mike, this is pretty brutal, and this is set to affect quite a bit of companies out there. So I guess first things first, going a little bit deeper into this strike in general, I saw some pretty insane numbers here, Mike, where they are talking about 85,000 members joined in solidarity by tens of thousands of dock workers and maritime workers around the world, and they will hit the picket lines at midnight tonight. So that is a big statement there. Like you said, there's a bunch of things that can happen to the economy with this. We're talking inflation, but just also kind of like a frenzy, like what happened with the 2020 COVID crisis, kind of like how everybody ran to the stores and emptied shelves and stuff. There's actually already been some pictures out there of shelves already emptied at some places. I can't believe people are getting that crazy about it, but I guess that's how important this is, Mike, and there's a lot of companies that can be affected. There's some listed here, and some big ones are kind of like Amazon, Apple, Walmart, Nike, Stellantis, any type of car manufacturer that needs to try to get parts is going to have an issue possibly. So I don't know, Mike. This is just something that could end up spiraling out of control the longer it goes on.
The clock's ticking, and it's a lot more important than most people think because of just how much trade goes through these ports. And as we all know, prices have been rising so much over the past couple of years where to see them go even higher would just be horrible, for so many different reasons. And that is exactly what Jerome Powell does not want to happen. So this is a very important situation here, and it will be worth watching stocks like, let's say, Walmart, especially closely, but many others like you listed, as if these ports are closed for extended periods of time, it can have some seriously negative impacts on the economy. So let's keep a very close eye on stocks like Walmart, Apple, General Motors, Nike, and all stocks like that over these next couple of days, because if they do start to break down and if these port strikes do last, this can be pretty bad, but it can also offer a pretty good opportunity in a trading sense.
Yeah, it definitely can. And, some people out there, they might say, well, hey, doesn't Nike generally get shipments from the West Coast? And, the argument there is, well, hey, if the East Coast is messed up, we might start to see the West Coast shipments. We'll see a bunch of traffic there, right? And it'll get all bunched up and there'll be shipping delays. And, I'm sure things will be stuck at the ports and etc. So it could get pretty crazy out there in a lot of ways. And like you said, there are definitely some tradable opportunities here. And some of these stocks that we mentioned that might get affected by this have been ripping up pretty good here in the short term. Like Nike has been trying to post a pretty good recovery, and it just about filled the gap on the daily chart. It's like right there. And then some of these other stocks, like of course Apple and Amazon, have been ripping towards highs. Apple obviously did not feel the pressure today, but we need to be very careful as it's approaching this all-time high and resistance overhead.
No doubt. I would say I'm watching Walmart the closest for multiple reasons. There was a recent big money trade on this one that we did cover, and it's still in play. At the same time, it still has some heavy resistance overhead right around that like $81.60 area. So if we combine the big money put play plus some strong resistance overhead with a large port strike potential negative news situation, plus a shaky market as a whole, it can make for a pretty decent setup. So especially if we see Walmart get back below that like $80 level and maybe even down to like $79.50, it'll be a stock worth watching pretty closely in a bearish way. But either way, be aware of this port strike situation because it is very important. And like I said, higher prices and inflation is exactly what Jerome Powell doesn't want to see. And Tom, he actually had a speech today where he said that basically, yes, we did a jumbo rate cut at our last event, but you guys should not expect that too much going forward because, we're not just going to go in mega rate cut mode, kind of like we're not going to pump the market like what China's doing. He basically said, we're cutting rates a little bit, we're trying to stimulate the economy, but at the same time, we're not going to get all too crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And, here's a good quote. He said, "This is not a committee that feels like it's in a hurry to cut rates quickly." And I think that that's a pretty important thing. But they also said if the economy performs as expected, that would mean 2 more rate cuts this year, a total of 50 basis points more. So I found that to be pretty interesting too. But nonetheless, though, that's if things go as expected. What if we start to see prices jump up, maybe with this shipping situation? That's going to be something that's kind of thrown at Powell, like almost like a black swan event, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, something kind of out of left field here that maybe hits the Feds and might cause them to adjust course. And I did see that some of the percentages on the FedWatch tool were changing today, but obviously the market's still pricing in cuts.
Yeah, so very important to keep in mind, and I'm very excited to see how everything plays out over these next couple of weeks because, this port strike can kind of throw a wrench into Jerome Powell's plan. Right now, he's set to, I guess you could do this soft landing that was extremely hard to begin with, but we'll see what happens. But on a different note, there were some stocks that were truly ripping to the upside today, and that's the marijuana industry. So basically, as we look at some stocks like CGC, Tilray, and others, we can see that there was some phenomenal price action intraday as Kamala Harris basically said we need to legalize marijuana, and it brought in positive sentiment and a lot of buying pressure. She said this on the All the Smoke podcast, and while this news itself isn't that game-changing for like immediate legislation, it does I guess you could say it changes the sentiment surrounding this industry, and the sentiment surrounding, especially an industry like the marijuana industry in the stock market, is extremely influential because when you have a bunch of buying pressure associated with marijuana stocks, it causes even more buying pressure to come in, and it just brings attention to this area of the market as a whole, kind of like what we saw with Chinese stocks over these past couple of weeks. You could have stocks that have just been kicked to the curb for years or months on end, but once they start to get like attention with them, that is when things can truly start to get crazy. So I thought this was interesting for multiple reasons, not only due to the recent short-term price action today, but I would not be surprised if we saw more coverage of, let's say, marijuana legalization as the election gets closer.
Yeah, exactly. Today was such a big deal because it was the first time that she's like done this during the campaign. And I thought that that was a big deal. They might start talking, obviously more about it and stuff like that. She did say, of course, it's not a new position for her. So, she felt for a long time that we need to legalize it. But at the end of the day, it's just good news here for the MJ stocks. And it's coming at a pretty good time, Mike. Like CGC just got really close to like the 420 to 430 support, and no, I swear I didn't put it at 420 on purpose. That literally just happens to line up there. But anywhere from like $4 to $4.50 is a pretty good support range on CGC. And Tilray's actually at a major support. It's bounced at like 5 or 6 times the past 2 years, right around 160 to 170. So it's coming at a good time. And I will say these stocks are still fairly low. Like if you're somebody trying to buy the dip on these stocks, like it's still pretty much at the bottom here.
And I really like the reward to risk with marijuana stocks over like these next couple of months for multiple reasons. They're at relatively low points, but again, we are heading into a crucial election where a lot of voters are looking at this topic. And as we all know, a lot of marijuana stocks do move in an absolutely crazy way. So like, I feel like, of course, they're not the safest stocks out there. They're actually extremely crazy and extremely risky, but the reward relative to the risk definitely is enticing. Out of them all, I like CGC the best, but Tilray moves in a very similar way. But let's keep a very close eye on these stocks going forward. And again, this is another industry that I'll be watching very closely, as I'm very excited to see how things develop over the short term.
Yeah, me too. And the elections always bring in more buyers and stuff. And today we saw a lot of volume hit for the first time in a little while, right? And the last time we started to see volume pick up like this and last for multiple days and weeks, CGC ended up going on a 420% run back in March of 2024. Now, hey, I'm not saying that we're going to have that again, but hey, these stocks do have some good movement. So definitely make sure to keep them in the back of your mind. And Mike, other stocks that have had a lot of great movement lately are the China stocks. And we talked about this yesterday, how there was a possible dip coming in the short term and to possibly capitalize off that. And, I think today we started to maybe see the beginning stages here of like a short-term pullback that we might be able to capitalize off of.
Yes, exactly. So we were pretty early to this China run, which I know a lot of people did very well off of, which is awesome. But as we look at some of these stocks right now, like we talked about yesterday, they're getting a little bit too overbought where it's hard to justify, being long or buying them now, right? It's better to wait for a better deal, wait for a dip. As we look at some of them, I really like FXI because it's a bunch of Chinese stocks all in one, and they have some great options as well. But basically, I would love to see like a decent sized pullback in the short term. To be a little bit more specific, I would like to see a pullback at least to like the $31 area on FXI, but realistically, I would like it to be greater than that, maybe closer to like the $30.50 area, and maybe $30 even, but somewhere between like the $30 and $31 range is a spot where I think it could offer some nice dip buying potential. So either way, FXI is definitely on my watch list in the short term, and you have to watch these stocks in the short term. They're moving in the craziest way, and as we've seen over the past couple of days, this recent uptrend has literally been historic on multiple different fronts. Some of this recent price action is the strongest buying pressure that these stocks have seen since 2008, and then the other index since 1998.
Yeah, that's insane, Mike. And I will say, though, there is something a little bit strange going on in the China markets right now, which is interesting. It is kind of the golden week over there. So it's interesting. The SSE, or the Shanghai Stock Exchange, is actually closed until next Tuesday, which is kind of insane. But don't worry, guys, because the Hong Kong Exchange is going to be back open tomorrow night. So there's only a couple days off with that one. But I figured I'd mention that, Mike, because, if you're wondering, like, hey, maybe China stocks are slowing down in the short term while maybe this holiday is going on, and maybe we'll see some buying pressure pick back up after that. But that's definitely something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind as far as, just watching this dip on the China stocks.
Yeah, so like you said, it is literally their Golden Week holiday. So keep that in mind. The market will be closed. But talking more about U.S. stocks, Tom, what do we have on the lineup in terms of events and earnings?
Yeah, so with the events here, today we had that Powell speech, which was pretty good. There was some pretty good market action there. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we have the ISM Manufacturing PMI and the JOLTS job openings data. This will be pretty important data. Obviously, the Feds look at this stuff very, very carefully, especially, I would say, the JOLTS job openings right now, considering the jobs are a hot topic. On Wednesday, there's not too much. There's some Fed speakers. Then Thursday, we do have ISM Services PMI. And then Friday, we have the non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate there. So things do pick up a little bit more at the end of the week. And shifting over to the earnings, Mike, there's not too much here on the earnings lineup, but, we did talk about Nike a little bit, and they report in after hours tomorrow. And with this strike going on, that might be an interesting watcher.
Interesting. All right, well, sounds good there. Jumping to SPY really quickly. It's still very close to all-time highs. It had a somewhat weak, I guess you could say, drop in the middle of the day today, but ended up closing in a strong way. So, Tom, what are the key levels to watch on SPY in both directions?
Yeah, overhead here, there was a major resistance it hit at today, right around 574.15, which was kind of the high of day on Friday. So I'm going to be watching that as resistance tomorrow, along with 575, which is the all-time high. It'd be pretty cool to see an all-time high break, but let's say we do see a pullback. Some major supports I'm watching are 573, 572, 571.50, and of course 570 underneath as well. There's a couple more minor levels mixed in, but for the most part 570 and then 568 are the major supports here.
Sounds good. When I look at SPY right now, I'm not too strongly leaning in either direction. It's really been a chop fest lately, and as we talked about so much last week, a lot of the best opportunities have been associated with specific areas of the market that have true momentum, news, and just power behind the moves, like Chinese stocks. In today's example, you could say marijuana stocks, and in last week's example, you could look at some of the price action from SMCI and other stocks like that, as they had that probe from the Justice Department. But the main thing is that the market itself is pretty choppy right now, and there's not that much real momentum. So don't try and force setups that aren't there with SPY if it's just chopping around. And as we look at today's heat map, about 66% of stocks did close in the green, but you did have a handful of stocks in multiple different industries that saw a fair amount of selling pressure. And then when you combine that with the fact that we do have this port strike set to happen tonight, it definitely adds a little bit of bearishness and risk into the market that is more than your average bull would like.
Yeah, I would not like to see this risk added in right now, and I'm sure that a lot of people are a little worried with resistance coming up overhead as well. We're going to be retesting that all-time high pretty soon. It got pretty close there again today. I'm really watching stocks like Amazon with this strike. They do have their second smaller Prime Day going on here on the 8th and 9th of October. So, imagine if there's maybe a little delay there. That could throw a wrench into things for them even, but there's so many stocks that could be affected by this, Mike. It's hard to actually name them all because there's so many, from toy makers to food brands to retailers. I mean, you name it. If this gets bad, we could see a lot of issues arise, but definitely let us know in the comments how you feel about it, because I'm curious if people are worried right now or if they think it's just a little overblown.
Well, another thing to keep in mind too is different companies will have different levels of exposure. Sure, we could look at Walmart and Amazon and all these other stocks and have them on watch lists, which is a good decision. But ultimately, what's going to have to be done is to continuously, let's say, scan and look for the stocks that are moving the most, and then just ride that momentum in both directions. Because there will be some companies and stocks that struggle from this event, and there will be other companies and stocks that have a lot to gain. Maine. So let's keep our eyes peeled, continuously scan, and follow the money, especially with this event. But besides that, Tom, we are all set for today's, I guess you could say, setups and predictions, right? It's time for the good stuff. A stock I'm watching very closely right now is CGC, and it is to the upside. We talked about this a little bit already in the video with marijuana stocks. They're at great levels right now. They have good news. We're heading into a crucial election, and they are already moving in a momentum-filled way. So CGC is on my bullish radar, not only for tomorrow, but honestly until the election.
I can't wait to see the CGC and Tilray jokes in the comments. That is going to be some funny stuff coming up later. But with my first stock, I'm looking at Palantir here in the short term. Palantir had a pretty good bounce off support, and I like how it's starting to bounce in the middle of this range and test the top here. I'm going to be looking for a breakout above that high of day today around 37.30, and then I'm looking for a nice test of these recent highs, right around 37.60 to 37.70. Nothing too crazy, but a nice scalping opportunity. If there is a lot of momentum, there might be more room to maybe hold some runners after we do hit the target, but nonetheless, I am looking at Palantir back up off support.
Awesome. All right, another stock I'm watching pretty closely is Amazon, and it is to the downside. Of course, there's all the port news, but this stock in general has been chopping around quite a bit between this $185 and $200 range over the past couple of months. On top of that, it is in the process of making lower highs, where its first high was right around that $200 level, and its second one was just a couple days ago, right around this $195 level. So with that being said, this is normally like a bearish, I guess you could say, signal. On top of that, the recent intraday price action has been mostly weak, and the market itself has been pretty unchanged and just, lacking true momentum. So with that being said, I'm looking at Amazon in a bearish way over the rest of the week.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I like that 185 support down there. With my next play, I'm looking at Boeing, also to the downside. I keep waiting for this support to give out on Boeing, and it was pretty close today. At open, it got really, really close to having a major breakdown, but I'm going to keep watching it closely. I really want to see a good breakdown below like this 150 support. Obviously, give or take a little bit if there's like a huge wick on the opening candle or something like that, but overall, I'm just looking for this support to give out, and there's been a lot of negative sentiment with Boeing lately, that's for sure.
True. All right, well, with that being said, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Coinbase to the downside.
Yeah, COIN had a pretty bad move today, and there's a lot of sellers stacked up overhead around like that 180 to 182 mark, but we're looking for a move under 177, which is like the low of day today for tomorrow. If that move breaks, then watch them down, and you can see on the Bookmap here how there's so many sellers overhead around 180 to like 185. There's just a whole bunch stacked up there, so I'm really looking for this to continue down tomorrow. If we get under that low of day at 177, there is a minor support at 175, and then right around 171.50 below there. So those might be a couple areas to target to the downside, but you gotta love the X-ray vision, Mike. You know, I can't believe how much sellers were actually stacked up on coin today. It was like they just kept coming in all throughout the day today.
You got like three massive walls just lined up back to back to back. So good stuff there with Coinbase. And I also thought it was interesting how there's a buy wall lined up at 175. So we'll keep a close eye on this one for sure. But with the next one, we have OXY to the upside.
Yeah, Oxy and the oil stocks did pretty well today. If it can get back above 51.70, then watch it back up.
All right. And then with the last one, we have Shop for both directions.
Yeah, Shopify kind of stuck in a range here. If they end up breaking under the support right around 78.60 to 78.70, then watch them to the downside. But if they end up breaking up and out of the recent range, which is right around 81.20, then watch them up.
All right, so we have the upside level for a potential move higher. We have the downside level for a potential move lower, and this is for Shopify. We have the upside level for OXY, and then we have a downside level for Coin as well. But either way, these three stocks are on watch for potential day trades tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels Tom listed. We are looking for strong, consistent, just resilient momentum here. The stronger these stocks move, the better the setups become. If they just chop around or don't break the levels listed, then do not force the setups. but we are all clear with today's momentum plays. So it's now about that time for today's $440,000 big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol HG. So this one's an interesting one for multiple different reasons. This is I'll start off by listing the big money trade at hand, which was the $17.50 strike call options that expire on October 18th of 2024. This is a pretty short-term expiration. The call options are somewhat deep in the money, and this company is a specialty insurance and reinsurance, insurance company. So with that being said, especially after we just had a pretty major hurricane, it's interesting to see call flow like this. This is definitely more of a different style big money trade than what we've seen in the short term with some of the Chinese style ones and even some of the longer term swing ones like ELF from yesterday's video. Either way, HG is an interesting setup, but make sure to keep in mind that the big money is only putting like $440,000 into this trade, which, while it's a lot, it's nowhere near the size of some of these $6 million plus big money trades that we've seen recently. So with that being said, with this setup, it would not hurt to, I guess you could say, watch how it plays out before making a move with it. But either way, I thought this was a very interesting situation, especially given some of the recent weather insurance related events.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was interesting as well with this stock. And, whenever I'm looking at this current uptrend here, this has been a pretty weird uptrend, Mike. Like, it has these weeks where it'll do amazing, but then it has these big dips, obviously, on the way up as well. And it seems like it's been pretty resilient throughout most of these dips that have occurred. Right now, we're like three pretty big candles deep into this current dip. It's a pretty good one to watch for here. Maybe over the next week or so, we start to see it start to pick up some more good momentum and continue to be resilient this year. I think that there's definitely potential with this setup. I will say, like, a support I'm watching in the short term is right around 1750, which is also right around the bottom of that larger dip recently in September. So that's just an area of support. Maybe you could use that as a stop, maybe not, but that's an area I'll be watching, that's for sure.
Yeah, so either way, keep this stock close on watch going forward. But Tom, we can't move any further into today's video without giving a massive shout out to today's member of the day, Benny C, who posted a phenomenal screenshot today showcasing his small account, and he said, best month yet. Thank you, Mike, Tom, the bots, and the whole Stocked Up squad. And huge shout out to you, Benny. You're a great member of the community, and it is amazing to see posts like this one. So keep on rolling, and hopefully we're set for an even better October. But exciting things are ahead, and it's a great time to be a trader. If you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check out the first link in the description in the comments down below to get in on the Stocked Up trading floor. This basically makes it where you get access to everything you need as a short-term trader. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long, access their custom bots, access the big money trades, join the weekly live events, access all of our bonus bots, get all of our new bots and new resources and technology that we're going to release pretty soon, completely included. And overall, it's a spot to be if you're into short-term trading. Again, it'll be that first link in the description and the comments down below. But besides that, Tom, we are set for a pretty exciting week. This port strike is a much bigger deal than most people think. And at the same time, even marijuana stocks are starting to move in some pretty crazy ways. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on anything. Again, there's a lot going on in the market right now, and we're going to be covering everything you have to know, the most important information, and the best stocks to watch every single day. But besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's have a great week in the market.